Right, thank you, Sharon, for that. And moving on, education stakeholders are hopeful that the plan by the government to review the competency-based curriculum, that is CBC, will provide a well-needed chance to bridge gaps, including challenges faced by children with special needs. Worth noting is that the Kenya Kwanza coalition government had promised to review the curriculum during the campaigns, arguing that it was hastily implemented and did not consider several concerns as regards its suitability. Since his ascension to power, President William Samoei Ruto vowed to enhance the efficiency of the competency-based curriculum system and even formed a task force to carry out a study on its implementation. Millicent Luamba brings us that report.
While a section of Kenyans hoped that President William Ruto's administration will entirely scrap the competence-based curriculum, the head of state, upon assumption of office, affirmed that he had no such intentions. Worth noting is that the Kenya Kwanza coalition had promised to review the curriculum during the campaigns, arguing that it was hastily implemented and did not consider the several concerns as regards its suitability.
It's time to review, in accordance with UNESCO recommendations, the CBC program, so that the issues that have been identified by teachers, by parents, by students and other stakeholders can be subjected to a robust public conversation.
Since his ascension to power, President Ruto has vowed to enhance the efficiency of the competence-based curriculum CBC and even formed a task force to carry out a study on its implementation. Barely a month into his term in office, President William Ruto created a task force aimed at reviewing the efficiency of CBC.
There is a robust conversation, ladies and gentlemen, in the country on education, and in particular, the implementation of CBC curriculum.
The task force was constituted of prominent names in the field of education, whom the president banked on to address the bottlenecks of the curriculum.
I will establish an education reform task force in the presidency, which will be launched in the coming weeks. It will collect views from all players in line with the constitutional demand of public participation, and we are particularly alive to the anxieties of parents on the twin transition of the last 844 class and the first CBC class in January next year.
The Presidential Working Party was designed to last for 6 months and was expected to issue progress reports after every 2 months. It was incorporate the views of, among others, parents and guardians who had raised reservations against the curriculum. Notably, the Working Party was tasked with not only recommending reforms to CBC, but also other disadvantaged areas in the education sector.
Good teacher and a teacher that is going to deliver the curriculum the way it is must be happy, must be healthy. It would be important to look at how do we enumerate them.
The Commission has abandoned its role as a good employer and behaves like a bad policeman.
Education Cabinet Secretary nominee Ezekiel Mashogu faulted his predecessor of failing to address key concerns in the implementation. The CS during his vetting noted that his ministry will work towards lowering the cost burden of the CBC on parents and guardians.
It is clear that parents sometimes are complaining of the expense, that it is a system which is capital intensive, such that they are required to buy so many things. And our system and this administration in particular, I want to assure members, would not like anything that is going to be so costly to their parents.
The CS nominee also promised to spearhead teachers' training on the fundamentals of CBC. According to Mashogu, the team behind the implementation of CBC was in a rush to implement it and hence failed to adequately train the teachers. He noted that the new government will prioritize training upon the release of the final reports from the CBC task force.
According to Article 53(1)(b), is supposed to be free and compulsory, basic, that is primary and secondary. So once I get the recommendations of the task force, this is one of the areas that I'm sure they will be able to come up with, such that it is made manageable, because Kenyans with the COVID and the economy the way it is as of now, parents might not be able to afford certain things as it is indicated in the CBC curriculum.
Calls to abolish boarding schools have also heightened in the first month of President Ruto's administration.
The task force must also look at education financing. Since education is a right, the right to education is for everybody, and education is a public good. It cannot be subjected to commercialization of commercialization interests, where we pay a lot of premiums on what is not giving education value, in like boarding and so on.
The Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers, KUPPET, called for the abolition of boarding schools under the competency-based curriculum CBC, terming it as unnecessary expensive. KUPPET Secretary General Akelo Misori stated that boarding schools had turned into selfish financial interest at the expense of parents and the overall quality of education.
So we want to move for deboarding of our schools, so that we do with education, when we define what a school is, then the number of children or learners in that school should be one which gives it category. Then it must be given sufficient funding to run. So that is what we feel should happen. Financing of education, then abolition of boarding schools.
The Kenya National Union of Teachers NAT leader Collins Oyu faulted the 844 system for being exam-oriented. NAT blamed exam-oriented education for the rampant lack of employment in the country. He added that the success or failure of learners in life was determined by the two national exams at the end of primary and secondary education. The sentiments by the NAT Secretary General are consistent with the propositions of CBC, which prioritizes hands-on education and less focused on national exams.
I want to thank His Excellency the President, William Samoei Arap Ruto, for having decided that CBC is not going anywhere and that it is going to be revised and looked into. That is an intellectual talking, because you know as well as I do that there is nothing perfect. Somebody tells you that something is perfect, that person is a fool.
The employment of the 58,000 teachers, as was proposed in the Education Charter, we pray that the strength of His Excellency, the President of this country, come to fold and we have these teachers employed, so that we ease the understaffing of teachers in this department.
Millicent Luamba.
Forever, for the union makes us strong.
Maisha Television.